Hello and welcome to Plugin of the Week, live from Point Blank Leap. We're live from the Hub today on Wednesday. This is my mic is on. Yeah.
That's always a good start.
Always a good start. So yes, we're live from the Hub and it's the first week of our term this week. As you can see, it's quite busy. I mean, students have started to slowly go back into their classrooms.
From their breaks.
It's lesson one for the whole week, and it's a quite buzzing place.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Love seeing everyone freshly coming in here, being amazed by all the kit and
absolutely getting
ready
really,
to get
really
started.
exciting and diving into it. And yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So for this week, plugin of the week.
Plugin of the bloody week. This time, it's probably, we were talking about NLS last week, so we thought it was a good way to follow on from that, because a couple of people asked in the comments about Slate.
How does it compare to Slate?
And it's not really a direct comparison, so there was no point doing an A/B, because they are very different beasts. Yeah. But we thought it was a good chance to look at Slate more in detail.
Absolutely, and some of their devices, I suppose, are doing similar function.
Yes, exactly.
As NLS in the sense of
analog modeling and nonlinear emulation, etc. So Slate, what we're looking at today is called Slate VMR, which stands for Virtual Mix Rack. And it's essentially a kind of interface of several plugins, very similar to the API Lunchbox 500 series,
500
where they're kind of like, where they're just like laid out in front of you so you can see everything. And until this came along, it was one of those things I didn't know I was missing until I actually was able to use it, because the idea of having your EQ, your compressor, and multiple functions visible at the same time, like the way that it's like, of course you should be able to do that, because you want to tweak. Everything affects everything else. So you want to be able to go, oh, let's turn that down, turn that up, blah, blah, blah. And before it was like open the plugin, tweak it, close the plugin, open the other plugin, tweak it, close the plugin. Especially less so in Ableton Live, which does have them all lined out at the bottom.
Rack, the idea of the rack, which I suppose, if you compare it to a real studio, like the racks we have here in Studio 1 or 2, you would have everything in your rack and you could be able to access those at the same time.
And you can do it in Ableton with their native plugs, or you could map out macros for third parties, but in Logic it was never really that easy. And this is, and Soundtoys have done it for version 5 with their new wooden rack thing. It's brilliant. So it's very similar to that. And this is part 1, because there's so much involved in a. JC, you're not loud enough.
I've got problems with my mic, I think.
But there's quite a lot of plugins that come with it, so that's why this is part 1. In part 2, we'll look at some of the other ones. So I decided to start it with mostly the free ones, because it's entry level. And what you have here is VCC, which is very similar to NLS. It's called Virtual Console Channel, which was originally available as a standalone, now only available as part of Virtual Mix Rack, which is kind of bad, and we'll get to that in a second. And the rest are a free plugin that was given away only a couple of weeks ago by Slate called the Monster, which is a crazy heavy compressor. A trimmer, which is essentially, a volume control. And Revival, which is a kind of like shimmer. There's a shimmer knob and a thickness knob, and the shimmer gives you some air and bite, and the thickness kind of warms and saturates the low end. So these are the plugins that we're going to look at today. I'll just quickly play you with everything switched on. Actually, no. Let's go with everything switched off, and then we'll build it back up. So you can hear, and then at the very end we'll do a proper A/B. So I'm just switching off every instance virtual mix. So this is just a little, we actually used this project before when we did the Eventide. So I thought we might as well just, so it's got like a little sub bass line, drums, quite epic drums, some strings, and then like a vocal sample here. So we'll start with the drums. So drum soloed, Apple loops. I don't think I did anything else with them except that's just what they sounded like. There is a channel mix in there. I'll come to why I've done those frequencies in a second.
Resonance.
I'll explain why after I turn the virtual mix on. So let's just turn, and the great thing about this is you can turn them all off individually within the mix rack. So I'll turn the mix rack on, but everything's still switched off, and start with VCC. This is the Brit N, which I believe is the Neve, which is very similar to the mic from the NLS in that it just destroys the low end in the best way possible.
So
gives it loads of warmth.
On the low, a little bit on the top as well. Creating a little bit of deep in the mid, maybe.
And I've just driven this. I think it defaults to 6, so I gave it 3 dB more, but it's more subtle in its drive than NLS.
Okay.
Even
when you
full,
push it.
that's up completely full. And then...
So yeah, okay, the harmonic distortion is not as maybe pronounced.
No, not at all.
It's not maybe a drive in the sense.
No.
In the sense.
No.
Okay.
And then the input and output are linked, well, they can be linked, so that when you turn it up, the output automatically goes down, so it's like gain matching.
Automatic gain matching.
So the harmonics remain, the volume comes down, yeah. Because a lot of the time when you're using input, you turn it up, this sounds better.
It sounds better because it's louder.
Exactly. So that's the little thing you can just leave switched. I usually leave that switched on. Give it a bit of input, so let's turn it off again. So right now...
we hear already, I mean, we're obviously quite low here when you turn
on the kick, you can like...
You really can hear it's going on.
And if you listen to the high end, it's actually rolled it off a bit in a nice way. It's softened it.
In an analog way, I take it.
Yeah.
You know, you've got this
exactly, So then we've got, next on is the Monster, which is doing quite a severe amount of compression at 12.7% mix. I don't know why it's 12.7.
So you've done
Let's put it, so that's 100, there we go, 100%. That's what it's doing, which is obviously crazy. Sounds cool.
Sounds really cool.
And that's the kind of parallel sound. That's the classic parallel sound, like way too much compression.
Absolutely, but that you're bringing
and then,
in. You're bringing in.
And
I what it does to the snare, the reverb it does to the snare.
Yeah, it's just like a sustained block of sound.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then punch basically is like some kind of, allows the attacks through more.
Okay.
And that way you just
so
leave that
a
off
bit
for
like
now.
having a slow attack.
Yeah. There are attack and release settings, so I'm not sure what it's doing next.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, you can. I think you'll probably leave that in if you weren't doing it in parallel. But as I'm doing it in parallel, I'll let the real transients come through instead of that.
Yeah. And you're doing the parallel just with the mix, the blend.
Yeah, just a mix knob at the bottom, and there's a high pass filter so that it doesn't compress things below a certain frequency.
Yeah.
Which is cool, and I put that just for the very subs. And high frequency detection, not sure what that does.
And I think that kind of severe compression is a good example of a creative use of compression.
Yeah, I mean, we would never leave it like this in the mix.
Of course, well, you know,
maybe.
There's scope for that. But
so
now
I'll put it back to the 12 it was on before, which sounds so timid now.
But still, I mean,
so, but then if you turn it off, I mean, and then with.
I think on the snare you're really coming through and a little bit of that.
Which in this track, which is a bit ambient,
really works.
The spaces are really important, so bringing them up. So that was the Monster. I left this in for a reason, because I originally brought this in because the Monster was giving me too much, and I wanted to dial it back before going on to the last plugin. And you can see it's clipping. But every time I took something off it, I didn't like it as much. So I decided to leave it.
So you like what the clipping does?
It's probably not even doing anything because it's like probably a transparent trim, but I liked it. Maybe it's subconscious, maybe it is doing something. But I decided to leave that as an example of, use your ears. It doesn't always, just because it's red, it doesn't always mean bad. In this instance,
you don't clip at the very end.
Disclaimer, sometimes it does. This time it doesn't. So I just thought, I'll just leave it. And then finally, Revival is kind of doing a lot to the low end. And you can really hear that on the kick. The kick is quite flammy, and then it becomes
much
quite
powerful and rounder.
And the shimmer just lifts the clap a bit as well. If you turn that right up, again, it's not crazy. It's not like
quite subtle.
Sometimes you get these plugins and they want to be really obvious.
Yeah.
And you turn it way up and it's like crazy.
Yeah.
A lot of the Slate stuff is genuinely more analog in the sense that it's not trying to impress you. It's just quite subtle.
No, but
and
right,
all the little subtleties across the mix add up, and we'll get to that later when you put them all on at the same time. And all of those little shimmer bits here and there give it a nicer sound. So thickness. So
the thickness, I suppose, is a bit
really
more
nice.
obvious when you push it.
Yeah. And then without it. So I felt like even with the parallel, the compressor was taking too much away from the bottom end. So I just brought it back.
So you bring
it's probably a bit too much.
It's often, in the analog work, I mean, I've done that a lot, where you follow an EQ, for example, on vocal, to brighten it up after the compression, especially if you use compressors such as LA2A, things which are clearly not linear.
Yeah, and the reason, as I mentioned earlier, I had this EQ afterwards was because I felt that the thickness knob was making it too woolly. It was becoming very.
Of resonance in
so
there,
without thickness, it was like that. Then with it, you can hear that resonant.
Yeah,
it's
there's one resonance.
There's like a harmonic resonant in there.
So you took it up. Yeah, this one.
So we took that away afterwards.
So you're bringing it back.
Yeah.
Into,
So these things they're not fixals. They may introduce something themselves that you don't want.
Yeah.
So just be careful and don't use your rear and go in and check. So I took out those two harmonics just to stop it from being so ringy. And it'll make sense later when we get to the bass. So that's the drums. Again, let's turn it off.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty.
Especially the clap. And then turn it on.
Both of them, I think, the kick and clap.
Yeah.
The two elements, and like you said, what's happening in the space between elements is also changing in a really, really nice way.
Everything's coming up closer, and bass is nicer. We think so anyway. Maybe you disagree. So let's move on to very simple processing here on this string sign, which was from the classic Selena, which we touched on a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
This is a Trident. I mean, Slate hasn't officially licensed any of these, so these are all what we think they are. Yeah. But a little Trident fork is a bit of a giveaway.
Another classic British desk. Yeah.
Malcolm Toft designed that?
Yes, absolutely.
And then I've given the input all the way in and drive all the way up to give it as much harmonics as possible on the strings. It's really important. And then shimmer obviously is great for strings. Go all the way up.
Obviously the thickness, not really.
Even all the way up, you could probably leave that on the mix because it's kind of what I would call functional part of the track. It's just there to fill a frequency hole. It's not going to be the bit everyone's going to sing along to or remember.
No, absolutely.
But it's there to just fill in the gap. So its purpose is to fill in that like 10 to 12K. So give it some more shimmer, why not? Didn't want to give it too much thickness because I don't want any more low end, so that's very simple on the string. That's without it. That's with it. Just a bit of harmonics. Nothing too exciting there. So the bass, let's see what we did. Let's turn this on. I'll just turn these off again before we turn it on. So again, straight to the Brit because it's bass. For me, anything, it's very similar to NLS. Anything that's low end, you go straight for mic usually. I went straight for the Brit on this one. I've unlinked these because I think I wanted to drive it without turning it down. And then again, 9 dB drive. Thickness was helped a lot on this track. I mean, again, we've only so with it off.
Does the manual say which frequencies the thickness is operating at? Or
well, it might. I haven't looked at it.
Okay.
So maybe it does.
It
probably
is really
does.
noticeable here.
Yeah.
You don't have such a huge boost, but still, it really makes.
Like without
really,
it,
really
it's like that, and then with it on, it's like very different. And then I turned it up a bit with the trimmer.
Okay.
You could just do that with the fader. I think I had a compressor that I got rid of and then left the trimmer in, so there you go. So again, the trimmer gave me a nice little sound.
Yeah, and if you bypass the whole thing?
If you bypass the whole thing. But be careful because it's louder, so let me just turn that trimmer off.
Of course.
And then it's very much warmer instantly.
Much warmer.
And there is a functional EQ happening here, so I'll turn that off too. You can really hear it there.
So you
without
treated the very kind of subby afterwards.
Without it, with it, especially as it drops to that. Yeah, and the reason I got rid of that was because of the kick, which we'll come to in a second as well. I just felt like it was overloading a bit. So let's turn that off. So the bass. One really cool thing about Logic actually, which isn't that easy to do in other DAWs, is now that you can resize the plugins using this. What I really like doing is just putting them side by side.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just going like this and just looking at, if you just line them up perfectly, you can see that what's around 60 hertz is peaking there. So I just brought it down on that channel because I knew they were complementing each other. And that's why that EQ is there. If you turn it off, I just felt like there was just, the kick isn't clear enough. It's struggling through. So with it on, kick occupies nearly all of that space.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a cool little thing in Logic. If you use Logic, you can line them up and just visually see. where they're complementing each other.
One way I do as well to kind of compensate for the fact that we can't have a rack.
Yeah.
So I tend to have them all, at least I can access
Yeah,
them.
you could just line them up. And then this is just from Alchemy, that was built-in Logic synth. And it's probably similar to the string, just giving it some harmonics.
Shimmer.
Yeah, shimmers up, bit of thickness, drives all the way up. Trident this time.
Yeah.
Just because tridents tend to be thick in the mids, like, similar to Neves, and this is a very mid-heavy sound.
Yeah.
So I thought just distort it in the mids, sound quite nice. Turn it off, and then on. So not doing a whole lot, but like I say, when you put them all together, everything starts to make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And then finally, this is from an Apple loop that was then affected by an Eventide plugin.
I remember.
Now, yeah, you can watch that video to see how these sounds are made. So let me just turn all these off too, and then if you just turn it on, and then one at a time, we got the crazy distortion, or sorry, crazy compression, which 100% sounds like this. So it's even distorting its inputs. You know, I just wanted it to balance that sound out a bit, because if you look at the transients, it kind of falls away with
so
it.
You want
to keep it more sustained.
More,
yeah.
so
And then we've got Brit and Eve again. I always find myself going to that one. Just for the record, I'm not sure exactly what all of these are. So there's USA.
Could be a US, could
My
be an
eyesight ain't what it used to be.
maybe, or...
Yeah, I think it is an API. Then there's two SSLs, G and E, Brit
Okay.
4K, or C Tube. It's just a
C
valve,
Tube,
but I'm not sure if it's a console or just something they've made up.
Or something they've made up,
Yeah.
or it could be a telephone.
It does. It probably does say in the manual. I haven't checked it out. Again, sometimes it's good not to know, because then you're like, oh, I'm an SSL man. I'm like, or like I like Tridents, and then you will instantly go to that, and it's like maybe it's not the right thing.
Maybe,
so.
well, if you don't know, you're probably more likely to make the decision based on what you hear.
Exactly. So yeah, a little bit of drive in there, and then finally quite a lot of shimmer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we hear the shimmer on that.
So then without it, and then with it, and then finally, because there's two versions of Virtual Mix, VCC, Virtual Console Collection. There's like NLS, there's a channel plugin, and there's the master bus.
So you're using, in that sense, like we've done with the NLS last week, or we used it as a summing.
Yeah.
And
so
you're doing the same, you're using it as a summing. Okay.
And again, I've gone for the Neve. You can use whatever you think sounds right, but I tend to always go for that one. And with a little bit of volume as well.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get rid of, because I find that because there's so many Neves happening and along the way, they all tend to have the same frequency response. If you do them over and over and over again on low frequencies, there's a build exactly.
In that area.
And this is a frequency I felt was accumulating
Which is around
200.
Yeah.
So without it, here how the kick is flamming and flamming, and then with it, the kick comes through so much more. So there is an argument for tailoring your sound before the analog plugins have a go at it, because it might not be working for you, but maybe it's the signal, not the plugin. So just be aware of that as well. So if I just turn them, let you listen for a sec. So I think the bass kick and the way the kick pokes through is really the key that VCC is allowing to happen. And if I just turn everything off, and then I'll turn it back on one by one. Oh, I'll come back to that actually. I missed one.
One way to be able to a quick A/B.
Yeah, no, tell me about it. I'm sure Tim Cook is watching this, and it's his top priority. What I've also done here is put some shimmer and thickness on the reverb channel.
Okay.
So I'll just quickly show you that. That's very hard to hear on this. If I turn it, let me just unlink this and turn it. So that's the reverb, which is from Eventide, great reverb plugin.
Yeah.
With it off. Well, that's actually the volume too. But let's turn the drive off there. So that's kind of with it off. So shimmer is doing a lot there.
Yeah.
Bringing up that very high end and some of the mid as well. So let's put this back to 0.
Yeah, it's really changing the color of the reverb.
And like I was saying when we were doing the Eventide one, you got to treat your auxiliaries the same way as your channels, because otherwise the frequency character of your tracks is different to their reverbs. Yeah. I know your tracks are going into your reverbs, but the way your reverbs respond might be very plug-in in digital, and everything else is very tape and compressed. Yeah. So you don't have to do that, of course, but it's just something to bear in mind.
But it makes sense. You're right, especially if we aim to do a virtual analog mixing environment, which with its characteristics such as maybe a drop on the very top end.
Exactly.
It makes sense to try to make everything better.
Yeah, and it does. It really does. And I don't know if you'll hear it on a Facebook and YouTube stream, but you have to trust me on that one. So I'll just turn everything back on. That's it with everything switched off. And that's with everything switched on. Maybe overdid it on some of the stuff. No. But you just go back in and tweak it a bit. Just take that down a little bit.
I think the kick is so much stronger.
Yeah. And you can just, leave Slate.
It really brings a lot of attitude to the kick.
Yeah, it's bringing a lot of that very tapey saturation sound. Slate, do you have a tape putting as well?
Yeah, there's definitely harmonic distortion happening on the kick that are really, really pleasant.
Yeah. I think that kick compared to that kick, and then there's no EQ.
Yeah.
Like we haven't even EQ'd it.
That is the beauty of bringing.
It's just character.
We've been discussing all the time of bringing those plugins to get to a stage where you can almost then you can start processing and mixing.
Yeah.
And you're like, we're in such a good place to start with.
Exactly.
And after that, it should make your job of EQing, and you probably will end up less EQing, less compressing, less processing overall, and therefore, in my opinion, a more natural sound, more pleasant musical
totally.
sound.
Yeah. And
brilliant.
What I did, just to finish up quickly, one thing I mentioned about Slate VCC now being Vic's virtual mix environment only, virtual mix rack only, being a bad thing is because now you can't select everything and put. You can put a virtual mix rack on everything, but unlike NLS that we showed last week, where they're already set up and you can group them,
they're not.
Now you still have to do it one by one.
Because of the grouping.
Because it's now within a separate plugin, rather than it being a standalone plugin.
Yeah.
If you're like me and you've still got the original version, which isn't on this computer, but I do have it, then you put.
Case for almost having a choice of each.
Yeah, exactly.
Using it as standalone or within a rack.
Yeah, what we didn't touch on is the fact you can group things together, and you can see them changing, because I've done some of that within that mix.
8 group, I take it, which is the standard.
8 groups.
Yeah,
and then you can quickly bypass the group as well if you just want to A/B something, and then switch it back on again. If you just want to try something, but you can see the knobs changing. So each instance can be linked so that the characteristics are similar, just like NLS. Really. So I hope they bring back the ability to load it separately, or if you can, somebody comment and tell me how to do it. So there you go, virtual mix rack. And in the next one, we'll show you some of these rest of these plugins, which are absolutely fantastic, which is including some 1176 clones, a Focusrite Red compressor plugin, which is amazing.
Both EQ and compressor.
Yeah, some mic pre's, old Siemens mic pre, and an EVQ, SLEQ, and a couple of other little things. So we'll get to those another time. But that's like virtual mix rack.
They're not free, not all of those.
No,
VCC is not, obviously.
No, I think it's $199 for those 4, which we haven't touched on yet. The Revival plugins, is that what it's called? Revive. Revival is free.
It's free.
Yeah, you just need an iLock. Trimmer's free. It's just volume control. Yeah, and those and Monster's free as well. That crazy.
That's a pretty cool.
A lot of when that came out, I think it broke the iLock servers or something. Yeah. So it wasn't that. It was about a month ago.
Yeah.
So people love that one, and it does sound really cool. So all you need is an iLock. If you've got an iLock, you can download those for free and keep them for the rest of eternity
hopefully
from Slate.
they will go iLock dongless.
And VCC isn't free.
No.
I think it's $199, but it comes with some other plugins as well.
Okay.
And yeah, so there you go. It's highly recommended
And they do
plugin collection.
subscription
They do a subscription,
yearly,
so
is it a yearly or?
it is month. Well, it can be either.
Yeah.
You can subscribe, which is what I do, and I would recommend it. You would subscribe. I think it's £22 sterling. I know, $25 a month for everything.
Okay.
Which is Virtual Mix Rack, a Lexicon Reverb clone.
The entire thing.
The entire thing, yeah. And a mastering compressor called FGX, which is awesome.
Yeah, the mastering suite as well is really, really good.
Yeah, you get Virtual Tape Machine, which is, in my opinion, better than the one on Waves.
Yeah, okay.
Which is saying something, because that's really good too.
Yeah.
You get quite a lot of stuff for that, and it's nice to see the subscription bundle coming in, making it open to more people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And yeah, so it's pretty cool. So there you go, Virtual Mix Rack. Go and check that one out. If you want to come and check this place out, we do tours on Wednesdays today at 5:30. 5:30. Or on Saturdays at 12:30. So go to our website, pointblankmusicschool.com, and hit the contact us button to book yourself on one of those tours. And we'll come back soon with another plugin of the week.
Next Wednesday, I believe.
So yeah, and we're on Friday with FFL as well, don't forget.
Yes, recording tabla.
Yes, brilliant. Exactly, it's going to be really good.
That should be really, really
yeah.
interesting.
So we'll see you then. Cheers.
Cheers.